Sony USA has cut the price of the 77-inch A80J OLED, which may eat into the sales of LG's larger OLED TVs. Let's talk about this. Hello everyone, Vincent Teo from HDTV Test here. Last week, or perhaps even 2 weeks ago, a host of US retailers began to reduce the price of the largest Sony A80J OLED TV, which is the 77-inch model. If you look on this Best Buy webpage here, you can see that the old price was $4,500 US. It has received a $1,000 discount to arrive at a new lower price of $3,500 US. And I think that this is an amazing price for a brand new 2021 OLED TV in the 77-inch screen size. Now, this new lower discounted price is not only available at Best Buy, it is also available at all other US retailers, including Value Electronics, which means that this new lower price came directly from Sony USA themselves. And I think, when you try to put this new lower price into perspective, and why I think it is so amazing, you have to look at, maybe Sony's own flagship top-tier Master Series OLED TV, which is the A90J. The 65-inch version of the Sony A90J carries a retail price of $3,800 US if you look on this Best Buy webpage here. And this is actually $300 more expensive than the larger 77-inch A80J. Of course, there are specification differences, but I'll come to that later. And when you look across to another competing model from LG Electronics, probably the closest competitor will be the 77-inch LG C1. You can see that the LG C1 in the 77-inch size will retail at $3,800 US, which is again $300 more expensive than the 77-inch Sony A80J, which to me means that the Sony A80J delivers tremendous value for money. Now, let's compare the A80J versus the A90J. I believe I have done a previous video comparing the two models, and you probably will know what you lose out by going for the step-down model, which is the A80J. So if you look at this table here, you can see that the Sony A90J will be capable of higher peak brightness thanks to the addition of a metallic heatsink, and it will have a center speaker channel mode, which means that you can use the acoustic surface audio plus technology as a center speaker channel within your home theater setup. It will also have a backlit remote, and it will also allow for hands-free voice control. Now, when it comes to the stand design, you will have to be aware that the 55-inch and also the 65-inch A90J OLED will only be available in a two-way stand option, which means that the feet are normally quite wide apart, whereas even the 77-inch A80J will be available in a three-way stand, and you can put the feet close to the center, which takes up a smaller footprint. And ironically, this to me means that you can probably fit a 77-inch Sony A80J on a narrower AV rack, compared to a 65-inch A90J, so that may be an advantage for some of you who do not wish to go out and buy a wider piece of AV furniture. And the last thing in the table is obviously in terms of the different screen size. If you want a 77-inch Sony OLED this year, you will have to go with the A80J, and if you want the biggest, baddest 83-inch model, you will have to go with the top-tier flagship A90J. But those are the differences in a nutshell. And I think, some of you will be asking me whether I would go for the 65-inch A90J or the 77-inch A80J, and my answer is always go for the biggest size possible, because that will benefit all types of content, that will benefit all the time that you are watching the TV. It will give you more immersion. And furthermore, I've been told by multiple parties that size really matters. But the A90J obviously will have its own benefits. It is capable of a higher peak brightness, but the way that HDR content is mastered, I believe that you probably will only be able to realize this higher peak brightness perception in a handful of scenes, if even that. And I think, if you trust the BRAVIA XR processing of Sony, and I have seen it on the A90J, and is truly superb. And if it does trickle down to the A80J, which carries the same BRAVIA XR processor, then I think, most of you 77-inch A80J OLED owners out there won't be disappointed, because you should benefit from the superior upscaling and also the quad subpixel boosting. Again, I don't know how much this will trickle down to the A80J given the lack of heatsink on the A80J, but until I review a unit, I cannot say for sure. But I again stress that when you get a 77-inch screen size OLED TV, you will be enjoying this greater immersion across all types of content rather than just a small handful of HDR content if you go for the A90J. Hopefully you get what I mean. And this brings us to the direct competitor to the A80J, which is, let's say, the 77-inch LG C1. And between these two, I think the strength of LG OLED has always been in terms of gaming. So the 77-inch LG C1 will provide 4 HDMI 2.1 ports for those of you who own multiple HDMI 2.1 source devices, such as, let's say, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and maybe a GPU somewhere. And they will support VRR, G-Sync, HDIG. Basically, they are the most gamer-friendly TVs out there. And I think, when I tested the A90J, I found that when you try to feed a 4K 120Hz signal in HDR, it had some problems trying to display smooth gradients. So I think, I saw some posterization not only on test patterns, but also in real-world content. So I think from the point of view of 4K 120Hz in HDR, I think the BRAVIA XR processor, specifically the MediaTek MT5895 chipset, has a problem. And I think, when it comes to ALLM and also VRR support, that hasn't actually arrived on any of the BRAVIA XR televisions yet, including the A80J and the A90J, and you may have to wait a long while before these features are enabled by a firmware. And even then, who knows, whether they will be functioning in a way that is trouble-free. So from that point of view, I think, if you are wanting to have 4K 120Hz support with VRR, with G-Sync, with HDIG, I think the LG OLEDs are a better bet. That said, the Sony A80J should be superior in almost every other aspect of picture quality, including upscaling, including motion handling, including HDR impact when it comes to trying to boost the subpixels in an RGB manner rather than just depending on the white subpixel. So I'll be interested to see whether this quad WRGB subpixel boosting technique that I saw on the A90J will trickle down to the A80J despite the lack of heatsink as well. And I'm just really envious of you people in the States who can access this sort of pricing, because here in the UK and the rest of Europe, we are still stuck with our high price. So I think in the UK, the 77-inch Sony A80J is still retailing at £4,000, which is probably what, 5,500 US dollars. And I think, just like Mel Gibson in Braveheart, the rally cry of Sony UK when it comes to pricing the Sony A80J is whole. But the pricing of 3,500 US dollars for the 77-inch A80J is certainly very tempting and eye-opening, and I hope I can actually get my hands on a Sony A80J, even if it's not the 77-inch model, to review to see how much of a step down in terms of the picture quality it will be versus the flagship A90J, which I really like in terms of the HDR impact from an OLED standpoint. If you'd like to watch more videos on Sony's 2021 televisions, I've created a playlist here if you'd like to click on it, and I will see you in the next video.